Hey! It is June, and do you know what June means? June means it is now time to enroll in Mark Dawson's Ads for Authors class. If you are somebody who has jumped into self-publishing and really wants to know how to make it as an author. And whenever Mark Dawson opens up the Ads for Authors course, I always like to make a quick video about it. I don't do it out of the goodness of my heart, I have to admit. There is a link down below in the description for this video, and if you watch this and you decide as a result of what I share with you to buy the course, if you could use that link, that would be awesome. I get a little piece of the action, and that means I'm encouraged to continue making more videos. But in return, I would like to try and provide you with some context about Mark Dawson's course that is actually valuable. I'm not just going to wax lyrical about it. So let me tell you my story and my experience with his course. I am a successful self-published author. Under a pen name, I write romance novels, and since my first bestseller in 2018, I've gone on to sell more than 65,000 copies of them, reached 320,000 readers on Kindle Unlimited. The height of my my writing saw income of $14,000 a month. So yeah, I'm not J.K. Rowling by any stretch of the imagination, but I am right at the position where many authors starting out in self-publishing wish they were. And I can absolutely say that the reason I got to this place is because I learned so much from Mark Dawson's Advertising for Authors class. But it's not as simple as you take the class and suddenly you're a best-selling writer. Because for me, I took the class in 2015, and it wasn't until 2018 that I really had my first bestseller. And from there, I probably learned as much about advertising through just doing it as I did from that class. But that Mark Dawson's Ads for Authors course really got the ball rolling for me, and I definitely wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that. So is the course right for you? Well, there are two questions I think you have to ask yourself before you make that decision. And one of them is something that Mark Dawson in 2021 seemed to really be focused in on. I remember when I first took the course, I actually tweeted to him and said, okay, love the course, it's fantastic. I just feel like there's like this secret sauce missing, because back then I'd done the course, but I wasn't seeing the success that I later would. And I think before you buy Mark Dawson's course, you have to think very seriously about where you are in your writing career, because one essential truth about advertising, and this is something that previously I hadn't sort of really seen spoken about in Mark Dawson's materials, is the fact that if you don't have a product that people want to buy, people aren't going to buy it. You can spend all the money you want on advertising, but if people don't want to buy your book, they are not going to buy it. And that's really what you have to keep in mind before you invest such a large amount of money in Mark Dawson's course. Is your book something that would be commercially successful if it was put in front of people who read books? It gives a lot of time. First-time authors and those just starting out in self-publishing don't write a book that is marketable, and I know I was one of them. And I have looked back in retrospect at what I did and what made the difference. 2015 when I did the course for the first time, 2018 when I had the first bestseller. What was the thing that made the difference? And it was the fact that I wrote for the first time a really marketable book. And so when I did that marketable book and I put it out there, people were like, oh, I'm going to buy that. And that's what it's all about. That's the secret sauce. And I noticed this year Mark Dawson is actually investing a lot more time talking about this, talking about how there's no point in advertising without having a book that is going to make money for you if you advertise it. And to me, that really makes a huge difference, and that's why I'm much more positive about the Advertising for Authors course than I have been in the past. I've always been positive about it. I know how much I have gained personally from taking the Mark Dawson course, but you know, there were previous years I was like, oh, you know, maybe it's a bit waffly, or you know, maybe there's something missing from it. But I can see now he's really dialed in on the specifics that can make all the difference, and that's my segue into the final bit about Mark Dawson's advertising for authors course, which is it does make all the difference. Advertising, I mean. Yeah, so I hit my first bestseller in 2018, and from then on, once I knew what kind of book it was that I needed to write and publish to be successful, all of the methods that I'd learned started to perform really well for me. And as I said, I was making $14,000 a month at one point. But in early 2019, Amazon pulled the rug from under us, and what happened was they really started going hard on building an advertising platform into their actual website itself. And for those of us who survived on writing really good books and organic visibility, we suddenly found things changed dramatically. For me, I noticed going from publishing a book and earning $10,000 that first month to publishing a book using the same strategy and getting $2,500 for that first month. I mean, to lose 75% of your earning potential in such a short space of time was devastating for so many self-published authors. I think it knocked a lot of them out of the game, and I noticed, you know, everyone's always going on about wealth disparity. There suddenly became a bridge between, you know, self-published authors who were making a few $100s, a few $1,000s, whatever, to self-published authors who were making $40,000 a month. It used to be much more evenly balanced and shared, but now there are some authors making so much money it's ridiculous, and the majority of authors are, you know, barely in it to actually earn any money. And the difference is advertising. The difference is advertising, because at the same time Amazon has made it more difficult for authors to be successful without some kind of advertising. All of the different advertising platforms available have really stepped up their game. Facebook is so much more sophisticated than it used to be. Advertising for authors is a really powerful platform if you know how to use it. BookBub is ridiculous, but it's deceptively simple. So people advertise on BookBub and they lose a ton of money, and they're like, I don't understand it. BookBub should be the perfect place. And it's because there is stuff you need to know to be successful on BookBub. There's stuff you need to know to be successful on Facebook. There's stuff you need to know to be successful on advertising on Amazon. And you know, I took Mark Dawson's course before all of these things started to become available, and so to a huge extent I self-taught how to be successful on advertising on Amazon, although I have gone through Mark Dawson's course, which is actually narrated by somebody from Amazon, somebody who used to work for Amazon. And yeah, it teaches you what you need to know, and the Facebook course teaches you what you need to know, and the BookBub course teaches you what you need to know. And there's this process you have to go through about building your audience through testing that is just so fundamental to success that you would never figure it out on your own. So Mark Dawson's course presents you with all of this information, and from there, if you have the time and the courage to bring it into your own life, and you have a book that is strong enough to actually produce profit from doing this advertising, there is nothing stopping you moving from obscurity to being one of these superstar authors who are earning astonishing amounts per month. You have to have a really good book, or you have to have the capacity to learn how to write a really good marketable book. But from there, if you can do that, then the world is your oyster, and it's all through Mark Dawson's course. So that's one of the most important things, I think. The second most important thing is you have to be willing to invest in this like it's a business. And again, that's something else that I hadn't really had to think about when I first became successful, because it was a case of writing a good book, investing a few $100s at the time in launching it, and then getting like $10,000 back that first month. These days, it's not like that at all. You have a book that you know is going to be successful, and hopefully you launch it well, and it brings you in a certain amount of royalties, and that's good. But you'll notice that there's a much sharper cliff when it comes to your earnings. And unless you are doing advertising, people aren't going to see your book, even if your book, started off really strong. So you have to start thinking about advertising, and what that means is you have to think of it like a business. You have to take seed capital, and then you have to invest it in experimenting with advertising, losing money with advertising, learning what works. You have to measure everything. You can't go on perception. That's the most dangerous thing for authors, because a lot of authors I know, you reach a certain level of success, and then that becomes your baseline, and then you're like, well, I want to be here, and you've finally reached that, and you're like, well, I want to be here. So you can be doing really well, but feel like you're failing, and that's why you need to go on reality rather than perception. You need to measure things. You need to have goals. You need to measure the success of everything you do that changes. It is a lot of time, effort and experimentation, and you will probably lose money before you start making money. But here's the thing, there's never been a better time to do this, because right now, through my experience, Facebook and advertising on Amazon and BookBub, if you know how to use them, it is so much easier to dial into being successful right now than at any other point I've ever experienced. And that's why I think Mark Dawson's course is so valuable, because you get the tools to learn how to do that, and right now it really is an achievable goal to be successful. I mean, I now work with other authors. I actually offer one-to-one coaching and consultation with other authors on advertising. I charge like $150 an hour for it, and really the value that I provide doing that is I can take the knowledge that this person might have. A lot of the times I speak to authors who've done the Mark Dawson course, but I can take the knowledge and the information they have and then put it in the context of what's going to make their particular book successful, and then advertising works for them. And I've spoken and worked with one author who takes like $1,000 advertising spend and gets $8,000 in book sales in return, and it's like, to me, that's amazing. But it does, you have to be willing to sink that $1,000 in there to get this profit out. From now on, it becomes less about being a writer and more about being a business person. You will need to start off with some money that you're willing to lose, and then when you get your next amount of money from your book sales, you're gonna have to sink that back in there. And if you do that, you keep sinking your money back into advertising. You keep drilling down and improving the percentages that you get for all of the books that you advertise. You are going to see your career as a self-published author grow at a rate that hopefully you will feel is astonishing, but you have to be willing to make that commitment. And I mean, I know I'm married, I have 3 kids. I know that every time I spend money on advertising and books and what I'm trying to do for my writing career, knowing that you are not necessarily going to see the benefits of that for 2-3 months, that's a tough thing for a lot of people to deal with. And yeah, I think the mindset and the grit and the courage, but also the rationality to deal with working as an author business rather than just an author, that's something that I don't think Mark Dawson's course includes, because I don't think that's something it can teach you. But that's really the second thing that you really have to be committed to. Anyway, I've rabbited on for 14 minutes now. But yeah, so if what I've said makes you think, Mark Dawson's course, I'm willing to take that plunge, then please do click that link down below so I can get a little piece of that. I would really appreciate it. If not, then listen, just keep working at the craft, keep working on your books. Go and study the covers of other books and the best sellers in whatever category it is you want to be published, because once you publish a book that people really want to read, advertising is going to work so powerfully for you, and courses like Mark Dawson's are going to pay themselves back hundreds of times over. So, I mean, it certainly has been the case for me. So, yeah, it's just a question of having a book that people want to buy, and then having the grit, determination, and the big swinging writer balls to do it. But I believe in you, because that's how I ended up where I was, and I don't think there is anything stopping anybody with the determination and talent to follow in those footsteps and go far beyond where I am right now.